Welcome back to another episode of The Laws That Matter. I'm Carissa Kranz. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a great plant-based pack show for you. We have Emilia Lujan. She's a plant-based powerhouse. She's an energy healer, and she's also in my hometown of South Florida. So without further ado, Emilia, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to have you. I've known you for a few years now. You're definitely a mover and a shaker in the South Florida area for veganism. So tell me a little bit about your vegan story. How'd you become vegan? Where did it start?
So it actually started when I was in college and I watched the documentary Food Inc. I was studying public relations and advertising. So when I watched that documentary, I realized how these industries were using the same techniques that I was learning in school to manipulate consumer culture so that they could exploit us for our dollar. So in that moment, when I realized that I didn't want to be taken advantage of, and I surely didn't want to be voting with my dollar in that way that was paying for suffering. So that initiated me into wanting to shift my dietary choices so that I wasn't contributing to slaughter or suffering of other sentient beings.
Mm-hmm. I always love that saying, you have to vote with your vote with your dollar, because like as the founder of BeVeg, where we do vegan certification globally, people don't realize how important it is to buy products that are certified vegan, because when you vote with your dollar, you're not just voting for the product that you're buying, but you're voting to keep that product in business, and that product keeps a lot of suppliers in business, and it really does travel down the supply chain. So when you are paying attention to the different products and the suppliers that are, feeding that final product, you're keeping them in business when you're buying that final product. But when it's certified vegan, you can be sure that the entire assembly line of products within the product are also vegan certified. And if you take a sugar component, let's say, out of the final product, and they change to a vegan sugar supplier, then you just put out of business or took away a major account of a non-vegan supplier when you bought that product that you thought was vegan but may not be vegan. So it is so important to vote with your dollar and to be really conscious and educated on what goes into the products you buy. So I always love to hear about the aha moment with people. So yours was the documentary. And then what actually got you to take that next step? Because a lot of people have an aha moment, but then they tune it out or they don't follow through. So something within you really shifted or caused you to have that follow through. What was that?
Absolutely. Yes. And this is something that I share with people all the time, because they're like, oh, I don't want to watch videos. I don't want to look at that information. I don't want to see it. They kind of just want to block it out of their mind. But what made me continue the shift was simply opening myself up to the information without me putting any restrictions on what I thought I was or wasn't going to do if I found out. Because people tend to think, oh, if I find out about what happens, then I'm going to feel guilty the next time that I eat meat. But truly what actually happens is the more open you are to the information, the easier it is to shift. So when you go to a restaurant, the next time you might not order a steak. You might be more inclined to ordering a pasta. So in that regard, it just makes it so much more simple. So for me, it was being open. And also when I started seeing the shifts within my body and within my consciousness, then that made me just want to continue through it and stick to it.
Mm-hmm. And I think consciousness is always evolving. So like for me, I was born and raised vegan when it came to dietary preferences, but I stayed vegan because for me, it was a moral decision. I wanted to be a vegan. I didn't believe in harming animals. But at the same time, I can say that throughout my life, I wasn't always conscious about maybe the down pillow that was on my bed or the down comforter or the shoes and where they came from or the leather seats in a car. All of that for me evolved over time with an elevated consciousness. And I think that when we are talking about veganism as a way of life, as an ethical vegan, it is an elevated consciousness for vegans, especially as honestly, as a group or class of people who I believe should be constitutionally protected. but I'm a lawyer and these are the laws that matter, so I can get into that conversation, but anytime if anyone wants to. But seriously speaking, when you talk about, the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution under the 14th Amendment, it protects race, religion, gender equality, marriage equality, and protects against discrimination. But right now, vegans are not protected, even though it's a practice and a way of life and a belief system we all practice religiously. It is not something that we have any constitutional protections for.
Yes, definitely. And I agree to that point because it's so easy for us to just be like, oh, I'm going to go vegan because I want to lose weight. Because even I saw that shift in myself. I went vegan and the weight that I was trying to lose on my legs and on my hips just went like that. And I was just feeling so good about my body. But really what kept me going was the moral element that you spoke about. And to go deeper into that, it's really important to be compassionate with ourselves because it's such a long learning process, to be honest with you. There's so many products, there's so many things. And that's why I think I really believe in what you do and in BeVeg, because it really allows for someone to see the certification, the proof of where this company is coming from. Is it ethical? Is it not? So it's always good to just try to take it one step at a time without trying to overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, I actually always find offense when people say to me, "Oh, well, veganism is like the keto diet. It's just like another South Beach diet, another diet out there." I'm like, no, vegan is not that. Plant-based might be that. It's more of a dietary preference. But veganism is a way of life. It's a commitment to a moral belief system. It is standing up against social injustice, whether that's animals or Black Lives Matter. Veganism is a movement. It is not an animal rights movement. It is a movement against injustice, and it is living in a commitment to a moral life that is for the animals and for the people, and just a life of compassion. Very similar, I think, to Buddhism. So, and just to get into another legal element here that I've been talking about, because I'm writing a chapter in a book that's being published in Europe with a bunch of contributing legal authors with Vegan Society, and my chapter is vegan label law. And I was working on the book this weekend, and I was just reading about the different case law. Like, for example, we all know the McDonald's case, right? With the French fries where they were being cooked in lard, and there was a big class action lawsuit, and it settled that it was fraudulent and misleading, because the Consumer Protection Act is supposed to protect, us against misleading information. But we have a similar case right now that's undecided with Burger King cooking the Impossible Whopper, saying zero, but on the same grill, saying 0% beef. And there's a lawsuit that's pending right now in South Florida that says it's not 0% beef because it's cooked on the same grill and it's sharing animal juices, and it has not been decided. Now, on the face of it, I was reading this case this weekend because I was thinking, wow, on the face of it, it seems like it should be the same outcome as McDonald's case, right? That this is misleading. But the difference with the McDonald's case, which I don't know if people really pay attention to, is that the plaintiffs in the class action were Hindus, which means it's a protected religious class. So what happens on the Burger King case is going to be revolutionary, and hopefully it'll be good case law, not bad case law for the vegan movement, because an offended vegan is not it's not an allergen. It's not like someone had an allergy outbreak and got sick and died, like Natasha's law that just came out in Europe. But it's actually an offended vegan because they feel offended based on their moral belief system, but yet our Constitution doesn't protect our belief system.
Wow.
But so separation of church and state, right? So who's the state to say what our religion should be or how we define religion in our Constitution? If there's a separation of church and state, I was thinking about all of this weekend. And I'm just just bringing it up right now because I think those that listen should really listen. Because I think as vegans, we have rights, constitutionally protected rights that need to travel to the U.S. Supreme Court and be decided in our favor, that we should have equal protection under the law, just like gender equality, race equality, Hindu, religious, Christian, Jewish, any type of religion. We're a movement. There's 78 million vegans right now in the world. How is that a keto diet?
Yeah. That's really powerful that you share that because, I practice a lot of yoga. Actually, that's my central practice. And within these ancient cultures, they value the lifestyle of ahimsa, nonviolence. And this has actually already been proved by science, but this is written in ancient Vedic scriptures as well, in which when you are consuming the flesh of an animal, you are going into a state of ignorance because the vibration of the meat is very, very, very low. There's no prana or chi energy flowing through the animal because it was sacrificed and it was slaughtered for it to be on the plate. So since there's no blood pumping through it, the life force energy that is inside the meat, the chicken, the fish, or anything like that, it holds all of the suffering and all of the pain that the animal went through. So when you are consuming this, you to the subconscious level, you're actually encoding your subconscious mind with the suffering of other beings. So when I actually first went vegetarian, I realized that my dreams started shifting. I used to have dreams in which I felt really frustrated and I just wanted to get my frustration out, and I was like punching and no matter how much I punched, I was just still super frustrated and angry. And then when I went vegetarian, that completely went away. So for me, that was proof. And then years later, I found the book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. And that was even more proof within itself that science is already proving what practices that date back thousands and thousands of years that come from the East, have already been practicing and saying. So for me, I practice higher consciousness. I also coach and educate people about higher consciousness. And I always tell them, if you want to reach higher levels of consciousness, you have to let go of eating animals, because that is a very primal way of living. And if we want to reach those those levels of higher consciousness, we cannot have something that's lowering our vibration and encoding our subconscious mind with more fear and suffering that we're trying to let go of. So ascension is about letting go and peeling back the layers. But if we're peeling back the layers and then adding more layers because of what we're consuming and the consciousness within the food, then the work that we're doing just doesn't really do anything. It just kind of is null.
How long have you been on the vegan vegetarian path? How many years has it been?
I've been vegetarian. I haven't eaten meat in about 7 years, like any type of animal protein. And then I went fully vegan without eggs or dairy for about 5 years.
Okay. And how has your life shifted in the last 5 years?
Wow. I am a completely different person. So physically, my body, the shape of my body just fell into the right place. Before I go into it, I think that it's important that people understand that veganism isn't just about eating Oreos and chips, and pasta, it's you need to go into the plant-based nutritional aspect, and you need to eat higher vibrational foods. So when I discovered this, my body started shifting, and my skin was just so much brighter. My hair was so much more moisturized. Like I've been growing out my hair for just a few months. It was up to here, and it just grew like so quickly in such a short amount of time. My nails grow so quickly in such a short amount of time. My wounds heal so quickly. And besides the physical body, I also feel that this path really helped me open up and connect with my own spirituality. So I'm able to go deeper within that and also ascend to higher levels of consciousness and higher levels of awareness because of this diet. And I've realized that throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. And have you found that you've been able to reach people that are already on that path of spirituality and meditation, but who are not necessarily awakened to the veganism, are open to hearing your vegan message? Or do you find that you're speaking mostly to vegans who are already on the same page as your message?
No, not at all. Actually, to the first thing that you said, I come across a lot of people that are in the spiritual path and that are not yet vegan. But the moment I explain to them the concept of karma, you are voting with your dollar, you are placing your energy towards something that is slaughtering beings, that is coming back to you in a negative way, whether you realize it or not, whether you accept it or not, it's still occurring. And it's occurring to a very subliminal way. So it's not like you are seeing it, but spiritual people understand this concept. So they're like right away, oh, okay, this makes sense. And when I speak about the emotions being trapped within the animal's body and the animal's flesh, and us consuming that and that encoding into our subconscious mind, they also understand it right away. And a lot of spiritual people know about the Dr. Emoto experiment, which is with water and testing water to see what vibrational frequencies it can hold, depending on if you are emitting anger or if you're emitting happiness, then the water molecule structure changes. So similarly with animals, if there's a lot of fear and anxiety and suffering, the cells of the animal are encoded with that because we are made up of water. So they understand that right away. And I also can reference The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, which is hard science as well.
Okay. And if someone is more argumentative with your message, but they believe that they're on, like, for example, let me speak specifically. I was having lunch with a spiritual person, right? So they think they're spiritual. And he ordered meat. And he said, I mentioned what you said regarding the vibration of the animal on his plate. And he said, no, I can change that vibration by just saying a prayer over the animal, and then the vibration changes. And I used the water scenario you just brought up. And he says, well, why is it different than me meditating over the meat? If the water changes and you can change the vibration, then why can't I change the vibration of the meat? And I was a little bit dumbfounded with the conversation, because I'm thinking, well, you're already dealing with a dead animal here. So why do you want to, raise the vibration of a dead animal and have to work so hard to convert it when you can just order, an alive piece of food and have a high vibration and then say a prayer and elevate it and make it sacred? But it was sort of a conversation that went nowhere. So what do you do in those situations? Do you try to defend yourself and come back? Or do you just say, you know what, this person's not open, I'm going to focus on those who are?
Yes. So that's where it can be really challenging, because of course we want to do our best to educate others. However, someone that is coming from that perspective of being like, well, I can raise the vibration and I can do it. First off, we're not the doers, right? God is the doer, or source, or universe, or the higher consciousness, the white light, the power. We are vessels. And within ancient scriptures that date back thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, it even says within that the type of diet that we should have for higher consciousness and higher vibration. It's only more of like the Western religions really that advocate consuming meat. But as we could see, the difference between the East and the West, Eastern culture is way more happy, more vibrant, have a longer life. Of course, there's a lot of poverty and such over there, but within a comparable means of middle income families or higher income families, if we compare these to the various cultures, we could see that the Eastern cultures live a lot longer. They live a more happy lifestyle. They live without as much disease, and they live more vibrantly. So there is definitely a spiritual component to it. A person like that might not be ready. I would try, saying like, okay, you could definitely try it in that regard, but there's other physical components that the meat does affect within our body, because meat rots inside our intestines. So that is not really high vibrational. Like, again, what I said earlier is the process of ascension is to lighten ourselves, is to feel lighter through letting go of energy, letting go of limiting beliefs, letting go of the layers, and also clearing our system. So it's all about purification. So contamination comes from eating these acidic, low vibrational foods, alcohol, cigarettes, meat, these negative thought patterns or TV shows that we're watching. That's all contamination. So it's trying to ascend and lighten ourselves and peel back the layers, we're not going to be able to accomplish it if we're piling on more contamination.
I always say that people don't understand. I can't handle the TV anymore. Like when my dad comes to visit me and he wants to watch the news, I literally bought him a Bluetooth headset, and he has to sit there in the living room with a headset on because I don't want to hear it. It's complete brain noise pollution. And when you are trying to live a purposeful existence where you're a creator with the universe and in the active aspect of co-creation, it is almost impossible to be open to universal creative energy and flow when you have the news telling you what to think about, what to prioritize. And trust me, I was in TV news doing regular crime, politics coverage before I switched to the more high vibrational shows. But the news phrase is, if it bleeds, it leads, which means they want the blood, they want the gore, that's the lead story. And then the way the newscast would work is the good story, the feel-good story, that's the kicker. And the kicker's at the end of every show. So you have to wait the whole newscast to be completely depressed to get the good news, the feel-good news. So it is so important that as we, I think, navigate this life as these spiritual beings in this human form, that we are really conscious and aware of everything we are doing and all of our intake. The friends we have around us, the food we put in us, the thoughts we allow to consume us, the news that we watch, the books that we read, everything is ingesting into our cellular makeup. And that affects our ability to operate as high functioning individuals that are living in purpose and in service of our creator, rather than just cluttered with the consumption of the negative energy that is consuming this planet. And another thing I also feel that it's, those that eat meat and that are contributing to this animal holocaust, and I can say that because I'm Jewish, so I can, some people would take offense to the Holocaust word, but I have to tell you, it's a Holocaust what's happening to these animals. With, I think, 3 billion are murdered every 24 hours to feed the 6 billion people on this planet. And we have normalized the violence on our plate. But what is unfair to us as vegans and those that are trying to live a higher consciousness, I think a very popular sentiment would be that factory farming should not exist. Even those that eat meat would agree with that. And we live on a planet where our consciousness is assaulted every day, where we are suffering as a planet from depression and anxiety on so many levels. Has anyone ever really thought about the fact that maybe this murderous industry that we have happening, that's murdering 3 billion animals every 24 hours to feed 6 billion people on this planet, that fear and that suffering of those animals is like this cloud layer in our atmosphere that every single one of us are absorbing by existing here, whether we're eating the meat or not?
Yeah, Carissa, and you really hit the nail on the head, because I like to say this too. It's, what energy are you feeding? Are you feeding the light, or are you feeding the darkness? We could see the duality in this planet, and every action, every step, every decision that we make is feeding one or the other. And having studied PR and advertising, I know for a fact that subliminally, subconsciously, we're being programmed to normalize these things, like you said. So this mass slaughter that is occurring within these animals, that energy, that suffering, and that pain is being distributed. So we're seeing so much suffering today. We're seeing people lose their jobs and their homes, riots, this, that. There's so much chaos all over the world, war, famine, and it's being fueled by more of this suffering energy, this energy that we're paying for, so that animals can be massively slaughtered, and that's really feeding into the darkness, into the agenda of the darkness that is causing people to be misled into eating, living, and thinking in the way that the darkness wants us to do, which is paying for more ignorance, paying for more illusion, which ultimately it leads to more suffering within our own lives, depression, anxiety, pain, dis-ease within the body, cancer, and other terminal conditions. This is all being fed through this agenda for us to feed more into the darkness. But we can take a step back and say, no, I'm not going to feed into that, because we're batteries of energy, right? So each one of us has a contribution that we're making. And a lot of people tell me, well, I mean, me going vegan, that's not going to make a difference. I'm just one person. But it makes a huge difference, not only because of the money that you're investing in the animals that are being slaughtered within a year and 2 years and so on, but also because of the energy that you're putting into, you're feeding the darkness. So we're batteries, we're energy source. That's already established. We all know that we're made up of energy, and energy surrounds us. So if we are allowing ourselves to be within the illusion and continue to submit to these darker forces, then we're just using our life force energy for evil and not for good. So we need to stand in the light. And the way that we do that is taking our power back and saying, no, I'm not going to allow for myself to be taken advantage of. So, it's important to do that.
Well, it's important also. The statistics say that I think each person on this planet that eats meat is responsible for consuming about 2 million animals themselves in their lifetime. So that's a lot of animals to consume. That's a lot of responsibility of one person. So it does make a difference if one person goes vegan, because you're saving 2 million other lives, depending on what time in your life you go vegan. But if you're not going to do it for the animals, you can still do it for yourself and for the environment. And there's so many other reasons why veganism is a healthy way to go and the cool way to go. I mean, I was born and raised vegan when back then veganism was very taboo, and I was much in the closet about it. I didn't want to talk about it. But now I think that I've gone through life and I've seen the tables turn, so to speak, and people are much more conscious, and plant-based bandwagons a much more hip, cool thing to be on. I am much more in my power talking about it. And I also now have BeVeg, a whole business that is for vegan certification. So I feel that I'm very much in my own, and I'm owning my truth, and I'm stepping up and standing up for what I believe in. And as I learn the law, and I went to law school at Berkeley, I'm licensed to practice in New York, Florida, and DC. I've done criminal law, civil law, securities litigation. And now that I'm getting into the vegan law aspect of things, beyond vegan label law and vegan certification, and I'm writing these books and these chapters, and I'm learning about constitutional protections, and I'm reading the case law, I'm saying, holy cow, I know the law, and this is no different than the women's suffrage movement. And it really isn't. And vegans don't get that. They think, they don't get that we don't know that we have rights. We actually have rights that need to be protected. But the problem is we can't protect our rights. And when I say rights, I mean rights to be offended legally if someone serves you meat, and you ask for it not to be, whether you have suffered physical harm or not. We should have a right. I mean, rights on determining the nutrition of a child if you get divorced, if two parents don't agree. Rights against discrimination in the workplace. Rights against, as if it's a religion because it's a belief system. We have rights as vegans. And us vegans are often so concerned about the animals that we're so busy fighting for their rights that we haven't even started a movement for our own rights. But the reality is if we can start our movement and get our rights penned into the Constitution and into global laws, then we will be more effective in arguing for the animals, because then our offense matters. Right now, our offense doesn't matter because we're considered a trend. But with 78 million vegans in the world right now, I would say we're much more than a trend.
Definitely. I agree to that. And it's very important to fight for our rights in that regard. So thank you for doing that work. I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm just having fun getting into the case law and learning about it, and drawing the parallels. I mean, seriously, it's no different than, Ruth Bader Ginsburg sitting on the bench arguing as the only female there really about why women deserve the same dignity and respect and equal protection of the law. I mean, it's just connecting the dots. Our constitutional is, grounds is a framework within which we're with enlightened ideals, right? That's what it is. Our Constitution is enlightened ideals, and it is a living, breathing document. And the Constitution is always growing at an organism with us through our evolution. But the enlightened ideals are all there. The question is are we evolved enough to extend the ideals to our heightened level of consciousness, right? I mean, it was only 1964 that the Civil Rights Act was in place. That's not that long ago, where we extended rights to, and ended skin tone wars.
Yeah.
Well, we still have skin tone wars, but we legally recognize that we should not have skin tone wars, right? And then that expanded to gender equality and marriage equality more recently. And I believe that we're the next movement. We're the next one.
Definitely. And I think that, people are coming into that awareness because the energy and the vibration of the earth is shifting, and we can all see that. Now people reference Mercury retrograde all the time, and people are acknowledging the fact that we are energy and that we are influenced by outside external forces. So as we ascend, people are experiencing, they either go with the change or they resist the change. If they go with the change, then they're going to continue elevating and letting go and detaching from these old ways that no longer serve us. But if they resist the change and hold on to their old ways, they're just going to spiral down this pit of disease and suffering and depression. And who wants to go down that hole?
I think the key is deciding which side of history do you want to be on.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure one day it's going to be looked back upon our time as pretty barbaric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to, find you, consult with you, get guidance from you, where can they find you? Where are you?
So the best place to find me is on Instagram. You can request to follow me on Instagram. You can just search my name, Emilia, which is on the scrolling below, Emilia_Lujan. You can request to follow me there, and then you can have access to all of my content that is on Instagram. I have tons of empowering and inspirational posts and other information about higher consciousness. You can also feel free to reach out to me through DM, and I'm available in that regard as well. Or you can friend me on Facebook, but the best way would be Instagram, so you can get access to the content too.
What about any books? Any plans to write any books?
Yes, I love to write books, and I do have a few topics and titles in mind. So those are definitely under development.
Yeah, I could see you writing a book and going on a big book tour one day.
Yeah.
So how has your life changed with COVID, with being on this plant-based path and a plant-based powerhouse? And before COVID, I know you were pretty involved in the community with events and stuff. So how have things changed for you?
Well, it actually was very transformative. When the lockdown happened, I was like, okay, I could either choose to be depressed, or I can take this as an opportunity to grow and break through my own patterns. So this event that Mind Body Expo, we had a huge turnout last year, and I was looking forward to this year, and we had to cancel it just the week of the event. We had to cancel it. I prepared so much for this event already. So I was already very upset at that because I had worked so hard. I sacrificed 4 months of my life, or 5 or 6 months of my life.
Is that different than the one that was going to be in New York? Was that the one? I was supposed to go to one in New York.
Different.
Okay.
That might be Mind Body Soul Expo. There's a few.
Mm-hmm.
So we canceled the event, and to that regard, I always like to look at things as opportunities, never as loss or failure. So I took that as an opportunity to go within and to do the internal work and shed and transform. And in that regard, I was very grateful for my mindset. I was very grateful for my diet and my lifestyle, because what I eat is very affordable. I eat plants, so that's like the cheapest thing in the market. So
That's a good point, though. Let's follow on that for a second. A lot of people say they can't afford the plant-based lifestyle. It's too expensive.
Yeah. That's definitely a myth. I've written several articles on this topic because people think, oh, well, I mean, it's too expensive. I'm not going to be able to buy the vegan cheese and the vegan mayo and the vegan sausage and the vegan pizza. And those aren't where you actually get your good calories. The good calories you get from the immense diversity of fruits and vegetables that we have access to at the supermarket. You go to the supermarket, and the biggest aisle is always the produce aisle. And the second biggest selection is always the grains and the spices. So just by having a diversity in grains and in legumes, and you can also pair them with the diversity of vegetables that are out there, and also the plethora of spices that have endless amounts of nutrition content. So you don't need to get nutrition from a bottle. You can just buy spices, add it into your food, and spices are good for digestion and for nourishing with any types of vitamins and minerals that are filled within the spices themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also do think that it's important to address the future legal battle here, though, too, with the fact that the vegan cheese and the vegan sausage and the vegan meat proteins are more expensive. I think that you can absolutely live a healthy plant-based diet within a budget. And there are movies and documentaries on this. Jasmine Leyva did one. She's been on this show, The Invisible Vegan, which talks about nutritional racism. And there's absolutely great ways to do this. But I don't think that us saying there are great ways to do it is also the whole answer. I think it's important to understand that right now that meat and dairy is so cheap because of the government subsidies. And it's really unfair that the government is subsidizing failing industries and bailing them out with billions of dollars every year. And yet when we as vegans go to Starbucks and we want our soy or almond milk latte, that we have an upcharge. That is not separate but equal. That is discrimination. And I was having a lunch in Georgia with my mom and dad at some German restaurant that was not vegan at all, but they had the vegan version of the sausage on the menu with a $2 upcharge. And I took a picture of it, and I think I'll address it in my book. And I wanted to get into a fight with the restaurant, but I didn't, because I know the restaurant really can't control it, because this is an industry problem, right? The problem is it's costing the restaurant more money to get our vegan options. So they're passing that cost on to the customer. But what's not fair is the government is bailing out the meat and dairy industry, so that higher cost is not being passed on to the customer. So we're being discriminated against because we want to have a moral, ethical way of life by having to pay a little bit more of an upcharge for that, which I'm willing to do. And frankly, most vegans are willing to do because they're vegan for an ethical reason. That, those that are dietary plant-based eaters, they may take more issue with the financial side, saying it's impossible. But once you convert to the ethical mindset, you're going to pay the $1 or $2 more because you believe in karma, and you just don't want to you don't want to participate in putting that in your body. But the reality is it's discrimination. And if it's going to cost the restaurant X amount of dollars more per month to have the plant-based options, or Starbucks X amount of dollars per month to have the soy milk or the almond milk as an offering, what they need to do is run their numbers of about how many people are ordering this, how much more it's costing them. And then they need to divide that among all their coffees equally and charge equally for all coffees, whether you get non-fat milk, regular milk, 2% milk, soy milk, almond milk, whatever. We should not be charged extra. The entire process should be subsidized. So that's another legal thing that really needs to be addressed, where vegans, I'm telling you guys, if you're listening to this, I'm telling you, when you go into a restaurant next time, think about it and see how they're charging you more to be an ethical person on this planet. You're being taxed. You're being taxed to be ethical, and then your tax dollars are going to subsidize and bail out meat and dairy. How is that fair?
Yeah, I agree.
Big problem. But people need to think of people when they walk into these stores and restaurants, they need to start saying, hey, you know what? I'm vegan and I'm being discriminated against. And I want protection. Like I'm being discriminated against. I don't think we're walking into places thinking that way, because I wasn't thinking that way until I started doing case law research to write a book. Then I started learning. I'm like, holy cow, this is discrimination. This is mega discrimination.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, not that I'm taking cases on this, because I'm pretty busy with vegan certification and BeVeg, but, I do plan to work on legislation and other things to help. And I really think it takes a village. It takes everybody to be aware, right? Just like you become aware with veganism, that it's an elevated consciousness and an elevated education, and you evolve within the vegan movement to cut more and more out of your lifestyle, because veganism is against all industry sectors, right? Food, fashion, wine, furniture, doesn't matter. It's a way of life. It's not dietary. So once you start evolving and you realize how things in your life that you thought were harmless are actually causing harm, you start cutting it out because you raise your consciousness. And I think one thing with consciousness that's super important is it never stops expanding. It's infinite. I remember when I'm writing a spiritual book called The Laws That Matter. And as things would come through me and I'd write it down, I would worry that I'd run out of things to say. Like, oh my God, like that's a pretty, enlightened thought that came through me. And I don't know where that came from, but I started to worry that like, I'm going to run out of things to say. But what I realized is when I got in the headspace of being open to receive, it was like a floodgate of downloads that would come to me. And it wasn't going to turn off the spigot until I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I got to go focus on my litigation and my other law firm here. And I turned off the spigot when I needed to turn off the spigot to switch gears. But as soon as the universal energy and flow finds that they have a person that's willing to receive and to take the downloads, the universe gets really excited about it. And the universe is like, here, take more information, here's more. We have a person on this planet to be a vehicle for us to give information and spread the enlightened gospel. I don't even want to say the vegan gospel because I think that separates us from others. I think there are so many people on this planet that are vegan of heart. Mm-hmm. And they are not necessarily practicing a dietary vegan lifestyle, and they haven't thought through, that nice handbag or that nice, those nice shoes that they picked up at Neiman Marcus. They're not thinking that way because we are programmed to not think that way.
We're programmed to just be consumers. And from the public relations standpoint, there's very much subliminal messaging that ties our emotions to the products that we consume. And that's why we think that it's so hard to detach from it. But in reality, all it takes is being open. And then the universe will show you then all of the information that you are seeking or not seeking or needing in that moment is just going to show up directly to you. And all you need to be is open to receiving. And then the shift naturally and easily happens.
Mm-hmm. It's open to receiving and also being able to be reprogrammed. For Thanksgiving dinner, I, went to a place where it was pretty much, not everyone was vegan. And I was sitting next to someone who is a pretty enlightened person. She meditates and she's kind. And when she saw those turkeys on the table beheaded, she said, I had to turn my back to it. I thought it was disgusting. I didn't want to look at it. And she got out her camera and she was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And she went and took pictures and she posted on Facebook and sent it to her family. And I didn't want to say anything, get into a conflict over, obviously I was eating my way and she was going to eat her way. And she's not anyone for me to lecture because she's not, she's just another person, and you got to watch when you say things to people and when it's appropriate and when it's not. And it wasn't an appropriate conversation for me to open at that moment, but I stopped and I thought, and I'm like, how the heck is that beautiful? How could someone who meditates and is a kind person to people on this planet look at a beheaded, dressed up turkey and want to take pictures and post it on social media and have this natural knee-jerk reaction of, oh my God, that's so beautiful? How that is some major rewiring that we need to do.
Yeah, and that's definitely very mind-blowing to me too, because I even see it within the yoga practice. I go to a yoga class and the instructor is giving nutrition tips about how you should eat your meat, chicken, and eggs, and I'm like, you're not a yogi. Like within spirituality, within yoga, within the Eastern philosophy of spirituality and higher consciousness, it's all about ahimsa, non-violence. So no eggs, no meat, no fish, no poultry, none of that. Nothing that has a face or a family.
Yeah, no face, no family, no mom, no eyes. Yeah. All right. So if you had one message to give, what would it be?
The one message that I guess I'd like to leave viewers with is you are the source of power. So whatever you choose, wherever you direct your energy, you are feeding that because you are an abundance of power, of life force energy that's flowing through you. So my message to everybody watching is choose wisely. What do you want to feed? What do you want? What kind of world are you voting for with your dollar? What kind of world do you want to live in? Is it a violent one or is it a peaceful one? If it's a peaceful one, are your decisions aligned with that? And if it's a violent one, then maybe it's important to seek some counsel, because our true nature is to be loving, compassionate, and peaceful beings.
And that's important too, because it's about living a life of integrity. So if your true nature is compassion and kindness as a person, integrity means living a life where you are aligned with your heart, mind, and actions, right? You have to be aligned in all three. So if your heart's aligned with kindness and compassion, and your mind is knowing that that's the right way to go, but then you're choosing to take action on a decision that is giving into gluttony or harm to others on the planet, then you're not really living a life of integrity. And that's okay in human form. I guess we're all human, and even, I wouldn't say that being vegan makes us superior moral classes of people, but I would say that it is an ethical choice and a decision. And I think that there are many vegans who are on a path who have other ethical deficiencies. So it's not to say that we are, but I would say that it is definitely part of the program towards enlightenment to understand and click that this is a life of integrity, and that when we eat vegan and we choose vegan products and we look for vegan certifications and we look for vegan labels, that we are living a life of integrity that is in alignment of kindness and compassion towards others on this planet. Okay, and one last time, where can people find you and follow you on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere?
Yes. People can definitely follow me on Instagram. My handle is at Emilia, which is scrolling beneath there. Emilia_Lujan, Lujan. You can request to follow me there and get access to all of my content. You can also DM me for any questions. I like to openly help people. And of course, if you want to do sessions with me for energy healing, higher consciousness, and so on, personal development, I'm also available. You could send me a message there, or you can friend me on Facebook with my name, Emilia Lujan.
Okay, Emilia. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was lovely talking with you and catching up. And I miss seeing you. It's been a few years. So hopefully we can get back together again when this COVID crisis ends. Since you're not that far away from me. We're both in South Florida. So anyway, well, I'll talk to you soon. Keep me posted. Congratulations on all your good efforts. And it was lovely to talk to you.
This was a pleasure. Thank you so much.